Do not refrigerate these 9 foods. Find out why. Hey there. Quick question. Do you ever find yourself tossing food in the fridge, thinking you're doing the right thing to keep it fresh? But here's the thing. Not everything belongs in the fridge. In fact, you might be ruining the taste, texture, and even the shelf life of some of your favorite foods by refrigerating them. I know, it sounds crazy, right? I used to be guilty of this too, stuffing tomatoes, garlic, and even bananas in the fridge, all while thinking I was being the smart shopper. But guess what? Those foods suffered. The flavors were dull, the textures were off, and it was like I wasn't even getting the full potential out of them. And I bet you've made these mistakes too. But no worries. Today I'm going to show you exactly which foods you should never refrigerate, and trust me, it's going to make a huge difference in the way your food tastes. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know how to store your food the right way, saving you time, money, and most importantly, preserving the taste. Let's get into it. 1. Tomatoes, the flavor killer. All right, let's start with a big one. Tomatoes. I mean, who hasn't tossed a bunch of tomatoes in the fridge thinking it'll help them last longer? I know I did for years. But here's the thing. Refrigeration actually kills the flavor of tomatoes. When you put them in the fridge, the cold changes the cellular structure, and that fresh, juicy taste, gone. Instead, they end up tasting flat and almost mealy. Not to mention, they lose their rich texture. So, what should you do instead? Leave them out on the countertop or a kitchen shelf. Keep them at room temperature until they're fully ripened, and once they are, use them up. If you're not using them right away, just keep them in a cool place, but don't lock them away in that cold box. Trust me, your taste buds will thank you. 2. Potatoes. The starchy disaster. Next up, let's talk potatoes. You may think the fridge is a safe place to store them, right? I used to think that too. But if you've ever found yourself with a sweet, oddly textured potato, it's probably because you stored it in the fridge. Here's the deal. Cold temperatures turn the starch in potatoes into sugar. This means they get that weirdly sweet flavor and can even change texture when you cook them. Not exactly what you're looking for when you're craving mashed potatoes, right? The solution? Store your potatoes in a cool, dark place. Think a pantry or a cupboard. Keep them in a paper bag or a breathable container, and they'll stay fresh longer without turning into a starchy mess. 3. Garlic, the smelly surprise. Let's move on to garlic. You know, we've all been there, buying garlic and thinking that if we just toss it in the fridge, it'll last longer. But here's the issue. When you refrigerate garlic, it actually encourages it to sprout quicker, and the texture becomes mushy. Plus, it starts to smell way stronger in a bad way. I found that out the hard way, and I haven't made that mistake again. So, what's the proper way to store garlic? Keep it in a dry, well-ventilated place like a garlic keeper or a simple bowl on the counter. That way the air can flow around it, and it'll last much longer. No more mushy sprouted garlic for you. 4. Avocados, a ripening setback. Okay, let's talk about avocados. I get it. Sometimes you want to slow down the ripening process, but putting them in the fridge is not the answer. You know the feeling. You've bought a perfectly ripe avocado, put it in the fridge, and then when you go to eat it, it's brown, mushy, and just not the same. That's because refrigeration halts the ripening process. Avocados need that room temperature love to ripen perfectly and reach that creamy texture we all crave. So here's the game plan. Store avocados on the counter until they're ripe. Once they've reached that perfect stage, you can pop them in the fridge to slow down the process. But for now, keep them out. 5. Bananas, the skin discoloration issue. Let's talk about bananas, a fridge fail. I'm guilty of too. You know, putting those bananas in the fridge to save them from ripening too fast. But here's the thing, the fridge causes the skin to turn black, even though the inside is still good. It's a bit of a sad situation, because we know bananas are best when they're sweet and just the right amount of ripe. The best way to store them? Leave them on the counter at room temperature. Bananas will ripen naturally, and once they're ripe, you can either eat them or pop them in the fridge for a few days if you need. The cold doesn't help them in the fridge, it just makes them look all sad on the outside. 6. Bread. The texture ruin. Now, let's talk about bread. A lot of people think storing bread in the fridge will help it last longer, but trust me, it doesn't. I tried it once, and the bread came out rock hard like I was chewing on a brick. Here's why. The fridge dries out the bread and makes it stale so much faster than if it's stored at room temperature. Instead, you want to store your bread in a bread box or an airtight container at room temperature. This will help keep the texture soft and fresh. If you've got more bread than you can eat in a few days, just freeze it for longer storage. 7. Honey. The crystallization conundrum. Let's move on to honey. You might think the fridge would help preserve honey, but actually, it does the opposite. Honey can crystallize in the fridge, turning it into a hard, unusable mess. It's not pretty. Honey doesn't need to be chilled to stay fresh, and it has natural preservatives that keep it from spoiling. So, where should you store it? In a pantry, away from moisture. You'll keep it smooth and spreadable, ready for your tea, toast, or whatever you love it on. 8. Olive oil. The flavor and texture loss. Last up for this section. Olive oil. A lot of people pop olive oil in the fridge thinking it'll keep it fresh longer, but actually, the cold can make it solidify and affect its flavor. It can lose that rich, fruity, and aromatic quality we love in good olive oil. You don't want that. Instead, store olive oil in a cool, dark place like a pantry or cupboard, but definitely not the fridge. This will keep the oil smooth and flavorful, just the way it's meant to be. 9. Coffee. The freshness problem. Finally, let's talk about coffee. And I'm not just talking about your average cup of joe. Whether you're a coffee snob or just someone who needs that morning caffeine boost, you probably want to keep your coffee as fresh as possible, right? Well, here's the thing. Putting coffee beans or ground coffee in the fridge is a mistake. I know. It seems like a good idea to refrigerate it to keep it fresh longer, but it actually ruins the flavor. Here's why. When coffee is stored in the fridge, it absorbs moisture and odors from the air. The fridge is a damp environment, and moisture can cause the coffee to lose its aroma and develop a stale taste. And if you freeze your coffee, same thing. It'll absorb odors from your freezer, and when you take it out, it'll cause condensation, messing with the delicate oils that give coffee its full, rich flavor. So, how should you store your coffee? Keep it in an airtight container at room temperature, ideally in a dark place like a pantry. If you buy coffee in bulk and need to store it for longer periods, it's better to freeze the beans in an airtight container, but take out only what you'll use within a week or two to avoid multiple freeze-thaw cycles. This way, your coffee will stay fresh, flavorful, and full of that irresistible aroma we all love. Conclusion. And there you have it. 9 foods that should never, ever be stored in the fridge. I know. It's easy to toss everything in there and think you're doing your best to keep it fresh, but some foods actually thrive outside the fridge. By keeping these tips in mind, you can make sure your food tastes better, lasts longer, and doesn't end up ruined because of the cold. I can honestly say, once I stopped refrigerating these foods, my meals tasted so much better. I hope this video has helped you out, and now you can go check your fridge to see which of these foods you've been storing the wrong way. Trust me, you'll notice the difference right away. So, what do you think? Have you been keeping any of these foods in the fridge by mistake? Drop a comment below and let me know which one shocked you the most. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe for more awesome food tips. Until next time, take care of your food, because it's worth it.